quadratic formula yet. So for tomorrow's test, I advise you on anything that has a b. Like here, what's b? What's b? What's the b term? -7. Yeah, I would not. On tomorrow's test, I'm gonna let you use whatever method you want. I would not do what I'm about to do here. But when you took this quiz, we had not gone over quadratic formula, so I'm gonna review this as you would have done it on the quiz itself, which sadly means you have to complete the square. So you'd have to start off moving the constant to the other side. And then what's the next step? As stated on your notes that you had during the quiz. Multiply both sides by a because a needs to be perfect. So that would give you 4z squared minus 4z equals -6. What's the next step?
B squared divided by 4 times.
Hey, Mohammed. You got lost on the way here? Uh-oh. I gotta mark him. We need to complete the square. Complete the square is b squared over 4a, which gives you 196 over 16. Uh-oh. When I try to divide that, I get a decimal. So, yeah, so we instead of dividing by 16, we'll just divide each one by 4. 196 divided by 4 gives you 49. This one gives you 4, so we end up with 49 over 4. That's the number that's going to complete the square. I have to get that number and write it on the left. If I can find a way to do this, that like I would have a flashing disclaimer on the screen this entire time saying, "Don't do this tomorrow. Don't do this tomorrow. Don't do this tomorrow." I know this seems overly complicated. It's kind of supposed to seem overly complicated. That's why completing the square is not something that we do frequently. And then we have the -6 times 1, and then we're going to add 49 over 4. On the left side, by completing the square, we're guaranteed a perfect square trinomial. So 1 parentheses with a square. What sign's going to go in the middle? The minus that was in the middle already. 2z times 2z is 4z squared, and then here we get 7 over 2. Wait, Mr. Romero, I don't get it. How'd you get 7 over 2? I just took the square root of 49 and the square root of 4. Then on this side, since I have a fraction, we need to find the least common denominator. What is the least common denominator of 1 and 4? Least common denominator of 1 and 4. It is 4. So negative over 4 plus over 4. The second 4 stays the same, so the 49 stays the same. On the first fraction, what do you have to multiply 1 by to get 4? 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. So 2z minus 7 over 2 squared is equal to 25 over 4. By the way, I haven't got to grading the homework yet. I did download it. I just haven't put the grades in. But luckily, one of your classmates alerted me to. So there was an issue with some of the completing the square ones that I didn't catch. The questions were asking you to use it for functions, and we never use it for functions. We only use it for equations. So the way I'll compensate for that is I'll just divide by. I won't count that when I calculate the average. Now, if you did nothing, 0 divided by 9 is the same as 0 divided by 6, so it won't make a difference. But as long as you did the other ones, you'll be fine. All right, so now the whole purpose of this is because now I'm down to one variable, so I can just isolate it. I'll go ahead and take the square root on both sides, so that gives me 2z minus 7 over 2 is equal to.
means yes, plus or minus 5.
Plus or minus. Oh yeah, and I just remembered that. Remember, you were telling me that there was an answer that wasn't there on something, or I forgot what it was you were taking where there wasn't an answer. I think you were just putting under that like you figured out what you were doing wrong. 2z minus 7 over 2 is equal to 5 over 2. 2z minus 7 over 2 is equal to negative 5 over 2, which, yeah, I know we don't like fractions. And again, I wouldn't do it this way tomorrow, but the one thing that's decent here is at least the denominators match up. So 5 and 7 is 12 over 2, which gives me 6, and then once I divide that by 2, I get 3. So plus 7 over 2, 2z is equal to 2 over 2. So 2z is equal to 1, and once you divide that by 2, you get 1 half. So 3 and 1 half. Much easier to use quadratic formula though. No, this is the quiz. The retake for this quiz is the test you take tomorrow. If you do better on the test tomorrow, that replaces this grade. Now, once I finish this slide, like these group of slides, when I bring in the practice test, that's the one you can do the retake on. Yeah. Yeah, I was able to do 12 of those in first period. If I can do more with you guys, I'll post yours. If not, I'll post theirs. This is the only other one here that I thought was pretty hard. Like the ones that were missed the most on this quiz were the last 6. You can see from the results. Each of the last 6, more than half of my students missed. But this is the only other one where I could see why it was missing. And if anything, I think this was slightly easier than number 5. Because if you can tell, once I move the 20 to the other side, at least the first term is already perfect. So I can go straight into completing the square. Negative 18 squared over 4 times 4. 18 squared is 324, but you can double check my math, over 16. That also can't be divided, but it can be reduced by 4. This gives me 4, that gives me 81. 81 over 4. So just like the last problem, you're going to add up to both sides. And if you're thinking to yourself, whoa, Mr. Romero, this is the hardest thing ever. Okay, I'm not going to agree with you, but I'm also not going to disagree with you. I get it. That's part of the reason why we don't complete the square regularly. It's just something that we have to learn. It has its uses in other parts of algebra, so it's a skill we have to learn. But for this particular skill, which is solving quadratic equations, it is not the most efficient. On tomorrow's test, where I'm going to give you carte blanche to use whatever method you want, I would use either. I'll even let you use factoring. Even though factoring technically wasn't part of the unit, you can use factoring if you like it, or you can use quadratic formula. I would think those would be the 2 best options. 1 parentheses. What sign are we going to have in the middle? Yeah, keep the minus. Here goes 2x. Here goes 9 over 2. On the other side, this is negative 20 over 1, which is going to become negative 80 over 4. So it's 81 over 4. If you don't know how I got one of those, let me know. Then we got 2x minus 9 over 2 squared. This gives me 1 over 4. And the nice thing is that I'm down to 1x, so I can just take the square root. 2x minus 9 over 2 is equal to 2. What's the square root of 1 over 4? No square root, it's just plus or minus 1 over 2. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. Plus or minus 1/2. Since there's no more radical, that means I can split this. So equals 1/2. 2x minus 9 over 2 is equal to negative 1/2. Plus 9 over 2. Again, we don't like fractions, but at the very least, they have the same denominator. If you use your fingers, 9 plus 1 is 10. Divide by 2 is 5. Divide by 2 again, it's 5 over 2. On the other side, plus 9 over 2 plus 9 over 2. Negative 1 plus 9 is a positive 8 over 2, which that gives you 4. And then once you divide, it gives you 2. Again, if you're going to say this is hard, I'm not going to disagree with you. I would also tell you that if these were the only two that you missed on the entire test, you would still get an 80, which is a respectable score. What the heck? Are both of those answers the same? It's got to be a typo. What happened? It's not about getting rid of it, is that this 4x squared is accounted for by that 2x, because what is 2x times 2x? Remember, the square kind of comes out here, and if you were to square that 2x, what's 2x times 2x? 4x squared. This 81 over 4 is accounted by this. What's 9 times 9? Is 81, and 2 times 2 is 4. And wow, I just realized that two answers are the same. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to go back and accept C also. Those two are the same. Probably a typo. It'll take me a little bit, but I'll go back and do that. Anyways, this is not curved, so it won't be as hard to fix. So for anybody, if that makes a difference, I'll accept C on this one too. Hopefully those answers are the same.
Presented a line.
Which line? It has to be a perfect square. You cannot go down to this if you don't make it a perfect square. If you look at the one we did before, that was the case. This first number was not a perfect square, so we had to multiply by 2 to make it a perfect square. Now, it doesn't mean you always have to have a 4 in front, but it does have to be perfect. Okay. Now look, this is going to be made a lot easier, like starting with this one. Again, I still would not use completing the square, but at least I have a 1 in front here, which makes my life easier. So once I move the 14 to the other side, I can already complete the square. If you weren't paying attention earlier, why am I doing it by completing the square? Why am I going over this by completing the square if I don't think it's... When you took the quiz last Wednesday, we had not gone over quadratic formula yet. Nico, x squared is a perfect square. X times x is x squared. So I can go to complete the square, which is going to be b squared over 4 times 1, which is 100 over 4. And then this is part of the reason why I also said that these should have been easier, because at least you don't have to deal with fractions. X squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to negative 14. I was already there, also plus 25. One parentheses with a square, what sign is going to go in the middle? No, there's a plus in the middle, so we're going to keep a plus. X is 5. Nico, what happened to the x squared? It became an x because the square is now accounted for out here. What happened to the 25? It became a 5 because the square is accounted for on the outside. The middle term, this 10x, would be accounted for if you were to expand it. If you were to FOIL it out, you would see the 10, but you don't really worry about the 10. Really, if anything, you could argue that the 10 was accounted for up here. This gives you 11. Now I'm ready to get rid of the square, so I take the square root, but 11 is a prime number. So I keep x plus 5 equals, here's the plus or minus, but it stays square root of 11. I taught you, Soha, that when the square root stays, splitting is not going to help you. So we'll just go minus 5 minus 5. X is equal to negative 5 plus or minus square root of 11. Which that one is.
Because there's the square root of 11 is just 11, you can't square root it. You can't necessarily solve that part.
You cannot simplify it. It's irrational. It will give you a decimal that fills up your screen. So you just left it alone. Okay, so I've gone over 5, 6, 7. Now here comes 8. Again, if anything, I would use quadratic formula tomorrow, but you didn't know quadratic formula at the time. So let's use what you did know at the time, which was completing the square. 2 squared over 4 times 1 is 4 over 4, which is 1. If this problem were only to ask you what number completes the square, like 9 and 10 did, even though more than half of us missed 9 and 10, what number completes the square here? What is the number that completes the square? Jason, you might want to help out, man, because your classmates are struggling. It's the last number that I just wrote on the board. 1. The number 1 completes the square. So you get that 1 and you write it on the left, and you get it and you write it on the right. On the left side, you're guaranteed a perfect square trinomial. What sign is going to go in the middle? Plus x times x is x squared. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. Now, unlike what you just saw with the 11, 6 is not prime, Nicholas. But 6 also, when you take the square root of it, gives you a decimal that fills up your screen. It's irrational. But the thing is, when you try to do a tree with the 6, you only get 2 and 3. There's not enough to bring anything out. So that's going to stay as square root of 6. Anytime the square root stays, it's not that you can't split it. You can split it if you want. It's just not going to help you. Like, you're not going to gain anything from splitting. There's no operation that you're going to be able to do. So I'll just leave it and go minus 1 minus 1. So x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 6. And then these, which, I mean, this one, 55% of you got wrong. The next one, 54% of you got wrong. And I just don't get it, because here all you have to do is complete the square. There's no need to solve. So this is just, do you know the formula? 14 squared over 4 times 1. This is 196 over 4, which is 49. Bam. We'll see some of these tomorrow. Even though I'm not telling you to complete the square as a means for solving, you will see these problems that just ask you to complete the square. I would hope those are easy ones. Again, here they're only asking you to complete the square. This is just by more than half the people, you would just put negative 8 squared over 4 times 1, which is 64 over 4, which is 16. Also D. And that's it for the quiz. That was the quiz we took on Wednesday. Now here's the practice test, which, to be honest, I haven't gone to look, but I have gone over this on my first period, and man, some of these problems sure did look familiar. I'd be curious if you were to go back on the notes from last week, the square root property, completing the square, and quadratic formula notes. How many of those same exact problems showed up on the test itself. I'd be curious. So even though maybe I might only get through 12 of these, if you took the notes and you go take the retake, some of those answers might be there. I'm not sure. I can't tell you, but I'm just from my memory, some of those problems look familiar. So now when you took this, we had already learned quadratic formula. So I'm looking at this, and this is perfectly set up for completing the square. I have the 9 on the other side already. My first term is positive and perfect. So if anything, yeah, you could probably make a very good case for completing the square here. And even then, I'm still not going to want to complete the square. I'm going to go making it equal to 0. When I tell you that you can use whatever method you want tomorrow, that even includes factoring. I know a lot of you guys don't like factoring, but if you do like factoring, even though technically factoring wasn't part of the unit, I don't mind if you use it. If you're like, hey, Mr. Romero, look, man, I know that -1 times -9 gives me 9 and adds up to -10, and you want to do that, if you feel comfortable doing it, go ahead. Don't write it down, because that's not what I'm going to use. I'm going to use what we did last week, which is quadratic formula. It just takes a little bit longer, probably. A is 1, B is -10, C is 9. So x equals negative b. If b is -10, what is negative b? If b is -10, what is negative b? 10. The first time you write it, you change the sign. So positive 10 plus or minus the square root of -10 squared minus 4 times a times c over 2a. Right, Soha?
So just basically means that it's switch sign.
That's what it always means. Anytime you put a negative in front of a unknown, it means change the sign. When I was a student, I always remembered it in a quadratic formula. The first time I write b, I change the sign. The second time I write b, I don't. But even then, that's just temporary because no matter what, once it comes time to square, which I'm gonna do now, you have to get a positive. If you get a negative, you're doing something.
When you square a number, negative, you get a positive.
Nope, because any number times itself has to give you any real number times itself has to give you a positive. 10 plus or minus the square root of 100. How many negatives come after the square? Just 1, so keep the minus. 4 times 1 times 9 is 36 over 2. X is equal to 10 plus or minus the square root of 64. 2. And I am lucky that 64 is a perfect square here. Nico, if you can't do that in your head, do it on the calculator. It's going to give you 8. Since I no longer have a square root, that means I can do the plus or minus. I can split this and write 10 plus 8 over 2, which is 18 over 2, which is 9. And I can write 10 minus 8 over 2, which is 2 over 2, 1. If you're going to go take the retake, okay, the link is up already. These were structured in a way where they were multi-select. There were these boxes. So what this is telling you is that you would find the box next to 1, find the box next to 9, and check those boxes only.
Okay.
So I already did that. Up to you what method you want to use. You now have 4 methods that you can use. The one that you can't use here, just like on this last one that we did, is square root property, because there's 2 different types of x's. You have an x squared and you have an x. If you have an a term and a b term. Same thing here. We have an a term and a b term. So I can't use square root property. I do not want to use completing the square. So the 2 smartest approaches would be either factoring or quadratic formula. Factoring can be quicker, but factoring requires you to use your times tables. I know that positive 4 times negative 2 gives me exactly what I want here. It multiplies to give me -8, and it adds up to 2. But a lot of you still struggle with that, so let's just use quadratic formula. Nico, if b is 2, what am I going to write first?
Negative.
-2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 1 times 1 times -8 over x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 4. How many negatives come after the square? How many negatives come after the square? How many negatives come after the square? 2. So that means if it's an even amount, I'm going to put a plus. What that allows me to do is avoid having to type in any negatives into the calculator. I'm not going to put -4 times 1 times -8. I'm going to just put 4 times 1 times 8, or 4 times 8, whatever you want. That gives you 32. So x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 36 over 2, which is -2 plus or minus 6 over 2. Because I was able to do the square root, I will be able to do the plus or minus. So I'll split it. This gives me 4 over 2. Sorry. -2 plus 6 over 2. That gives me 4 over 2, which gives me 2. -2 minus 6 over 2 gives me -8 over 2, which gives me -4. So the two boxes I would check would be 2 and -4. So now Daniel looks at this one, he's like, oh no, man, there's a 7 in front. But more important than that, how many x's do I have? Yeah, I don't have a b term. B is 0. So the smartest thing to do here would just be to use square root property. Let's just get that x by itself. I have to get rid of the -1 first, plus 1 plus 1. Go back and check the notes. I'm like, this is one of the ones that seems really familiar. I'm pretty sure this was on the notes for square root property. X squared is equal to 9. Square root, plus or minus 3. What boxes would I go check there? +3 and -3. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Again, how many x's? It only has one x. It's inside of a parenthesis, so let's just use square root property. Now the difference here is because it's inside of a parenthesis, I gotta do the square root first. I gotta get rid of the square first. So on this side I have 2x plus 1, but what is that gonna be equal to?
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus 12. Un cortadito. 2x plus 1 is equal to 12. 2x plus 1 is equal to negative 12. Minus 1 minus 1. 2x is 11 divided by 2. X is 11 over 2. Minus 1 minus 1. 2x is negative 13 divided by 2. X is negative 13 over 2. So what, did you get the same answer? I just want to see if she got the same answer. Any questions there? Okay. Geez, again, how many x's do we see? So instead of getting things complicated and somebody last period says, oh, distribute the 2. No way. No way, bros. Let's just try to isolate the variable. What would I get rid of first if I want to isolate the variable? I'm going to get rid of not the square here. On the outside of a parentheses, the square would be what you get rid of last. You just got to get rid of the square before you go in the parentheses. So I got to go through it. Huh? The square won't be in there. Not in this type of a problem. Now, since there's nothing else outside, I get rid of the square. What's the square root of 16? Plus or minus 4. Curse you with that plus or minus. X plus 3 is 4. X plus 3 is negative 4. Minus 3 on both sides, x is 1. Minus 3 on both sides, x is negative 7. Hey, how many variables? Just one. I am going to get rid of the 2. This would be minus 2. So 3x. Anybody have those notes out from when we did square root property? No. Because pretty familiar. 3x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 2. So 3x minus 4 is equal to 2. 3x minus 4 is equal to negative 2. Plus 4 plus 4. 3x is equal to 6 divided by 3. X is 2. Plus 4 plus 4. 3x is equal to 2 divided by 3. X is 2 over 3. Isaac, did you get the same thing? That's what Amici got. But she just wanted to check and see.
No sé.
Yeah, no sé. Hey, how many x's? Just 1. So let's solve. This one should be pretty simple. It should not have been one of the ones missed the most. 16x squared is equal to 25. Square root like we do in the hood. Actually, wait, no, I'm sorry. I take that back. Not yet. When there's no parentheses, the square will be the last one. So x squared is equal to 25 over 16. Somebody not named Jason, can you tell me what the square root of 25 over 16 is? What do you think, Cassandra? El raíz cuadrado de 25 sobre 16. Well, yes, it will involve a 5 over 4. You did the hard part for Cassandra, but what did Cassandra forget? 5 times 5 is 25. 4 times 4 is 16. According to Jerry. Cheater. Dale. Hey, how many x's?
One.
Just one, so let's isolate it. Minus 6 minus 6, 5x squared is equal to 80 divided by 5. X squared is equal to, is that 16? It is. So once you take the square root, like Amici loves to do on weekends, what do you get? Jason, go ahead, buddy. He's struggling over there. He's out of gas. Nico? Please don't tell me you have to do the calculation. Come on, Nico. Rose watching, man. No. Who are you?
No, that's
Third to 16? Plus or minus 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Taiwan knew it, he just didn't want to say it. You don't know what 4 times 4 is? But if you don't know, now you know. All right. Whoa. This is much harder. Anything for you, Edio. Even though you had your head down for half the problem. No. Culpa de Inoshka. Culpa. How many x's do we have here? No, well, it looks that way, but we really only have one because they both have a square. So once I put them on the same side, we can use square root property. This becomes 3x squared is equal to 70 fizzle divided by 3.
which side?
It does not. And especially once you divide, you have to get that. If it went to the other side, it would say 25 equals x squared. But because see, if you go on the opposite side, yeah, you would have gotten negative 3x squared, but you also would have gotten negative 75. So then you would have ended up dividing negative 75 by negative 3, and you still get a positive. 3 minutes on this? 20 minutes. I think it's so hard. Yeah, what do you get? For shizzle. What's the minus 5? That is in German though. En ruso. Tú hablas ruso. Yeah, here there's two different x's. So, and especially with the numbers here are pretty nasty. I would go and use the quadratic formula. So we make it equal to 0. Same way Soha likes to do it. 6x squared. You don't like quadratic formula? How does it feel about you? I think you guys need to coexist. X is equal to, if b is negative 5. Nico, this is the one you mastered today. Come on, tell me. What am I going to write first? Good. Plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 6 over 2 times 6. Wi-Fi. 5 plus or minus negative 5 squared is 25. How many negatives come after the square? 2. So we make it to a plus. And 4 times 6 is 144. 25 and 144 gives me 169. And I get lucky. Nico gets lucky. That's a perfect square. Square root of 169 is 13. Now, where you're not lucky is that since we can go ahead and split this, and when we go split it, we're going to get some fractions. Because plus 5 plus 13 gives me 18 over 12, and that can't be divided. And if you don't have one of these fancy math print calculators like Nicholas does, you have to know how to reduce. Those can be divided by 6. So this gives you 3 over 2. And then we also get 5 minus 13 over 12, which gives me negative 8 over 12, which again cannot be divided. It has to be reduced. You can reduce it by 4, which gives you negative 2 over 3. Fax machine. Dale. Okay, this one's already equal to 0. The numbers don't seem so pleasant. You might be able to factor, but why bother? When in Rome, use quadratic formula. X is equal to, what am I going to write first, Nico?
9.
Positive 9. So, negative 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times 9 over 2 times 2. X is equal to 9 plus or minus the square root of 81. 72 minus 72 over 4. I'm so happy because 81 minus 72 is 9, and 9 is a perfect square. Nico, what's the square root of 9? Get the man, Nico. So we get 9 plus or minus 3 over 4. Split it. That's 9 plus 3 over 4, which is 12 over 4, which is 3. That's also 9 minus 3 over 4, which is not as friendly because that's 6 over 4, so you have to know how to reduce down to 3 over 2. I divided each of those by 2. So did Soha. Come on, mister, do as many of these as possible. So that way I don't have to do them later. Let's see, I'll do either 1 or 2 more. This is already equal to 0. So A is equal to 3, B is equal to 10, C is equal to negative 8. X is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 8 over 2 times 3. X is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 100. How many negatives come after the square? How many negatives come after the square? 2, so that's plus 96 over 6. Nicholas is also excited because 196 is a perfect square.
Yay.
So x equals negative 10 plus or minus 14 over 6. Because I was able to do the square root, I'll be able to do the plus or minus. So I can say negative 10 plus 14 over 6 and negative 10 minus 14 over 6. This gives me 4 over 6, which is 2 over 3. This gives me negative 24 over 6, which is negative 4. All right, the last one. Here, let's actually let's do this one. It's not that it's harder. It's just I can tell on this one I'm not gonna be able to get rid of the square root. So, the numbers are small, which makes it a little more friendly. If you're gonna screw this one up, it's probably because of the signs. So what am I gonna write first, Nico? Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 1 over 2 times 1. X is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9, and then there's 2, so it's plus 4 over 2. X is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. Kind of like you saw with the completing the square. I have a square root here that that does not have a you know what? I think well, that's fine. We can leave it on like this, but I'm pretty sure this was one of the questions that just said how many solutions. Because I couldn't have put this on the test because I can't enter that as an answer. So if they're asking you how many solutions, what would you write? No, no, not many, not one, two. There's two. Why? Because I have a positive discriminant. My discriminant is 13. So I know I'm going to get two solutions. The thing is, I can't simplify it anymore. I can't do anything with the square root. If I can't do the square root, I can't do the plus or minus. Sometimes you can do the division, but in order to do the division, not only would you have to have been able to bring a number out of the square root, it also would have to have a common factor. It doesn't, so you're done. But I'm pretty sure this was one of the ones that came under how many solutions. All right. Test.